This is the sexual menu most of us were fed growing up. Imagine eating boiled chicken for every meal. Now, this menu would be what most of us were taught was the sexual holy grail. I'm going to use anatomically correct language here. Penis in vagina intercourse. Notice there is no seasoning. Now, some of us weren't taught that seasoning on actual chicken is essential, and I'm more for you. No Tony Chachere's, no Lawry seasoned salt, no garlic powder. That is diabolical, but I digress. So many women ate from the unseasoned sexual menu because it was all we were offered. Some of us with multiple marginalized identities were told we shouldn't even be eating at all. Disabled, starve. Queer, starve. Fat-bodied, starve. Old, you had your time to eat. Now you can just starve to death. So many of us were taught that this sexual menu, if it had any flavor, wasn't for us. We were only to season sex for the men in our lives. If we liked anything beyond bland, we were shamed for it. Now, how is it that we live in the age of Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B? And we're nearly 5 years from the release of their mega hit WAP, that so many women that I work with as a psychologist are still struggling to release the unseasoned sexual menu. Well, unfortunately, early medicine, science, religion, education, and politics took core insights from wealthy white men from the 1700s about who was worthy of all the good life has to offer, sex included. They created the unseasoned sexual menu that you continue to eat from today. In my book, Good Sex, I share a brief anecdote about a French philosopher from the 1700s who wrote his glaringly unscientific dissertation about the need to preserve a woman's chastity and prevent her from falling prey to nymphomania. Not a real thing. According to him, eating too much chocolate, reading novels, and masturbation were the gateway drugs. Don't save me. I don't want to be saved. Shout out the Tennessee native Project Pat. But you're worthy more than an unseasoned sexual menu. You're worthy of sex that is good to and for everyone involved. You're worthy of sex that nourishes you mind, body, heart, and soul. And today, I'm going to talk you through creating your own personalized sexual liberation menu. How would you describe good sex in 3 words? Get out your notes app or your pen and paper if you're old school like me, and write down a few of those words for yourself. Now, those words can include anything, but not what other people would want you to say. What is true for you? No, seriously, get it. So my word, orgasm isn't even in my top 3, but transcendent, that's my number 1. I want to levitate a little bit during the sexual experience. I want to feel like I'm experiencing the divine and the sacred, that I'm one with the universe. What are some of those words for you? Well, I asked that with Dr. Shamika Thorpe of 450 people, and they gave us this list of words. Consider these your sexual seasonings. You got communication, pleasure, love, orgasm, nastiness. Shout out to Miss Jackson. Now, all of these words might not be on your menu, and you don't have to have the same combination throughout your lifespan. It could change depending on the partner you're with, the life stage you're in, any number of events. That's totally normal. But the heart of it is you are worthy of access to every single sexual seasoning on this list, and even some that aren't. Now, you might notice that 3 words on this list, orgasmic, pleasurable, and satisfying, are distinct seasonings. Sometimes when I say good sex, people assume that I mean one or all of these 3 words, but they're not the same. Even some sex scientists conflate these 3 terms, but they're a little bit different. Let me break it down. Now, orgasms, singular or multiple, usually last up to 60 seconds. They are typically considered physically pleasurable, but they're not the totality of pleasure. Genitals contract, some people ejaculate. They are portrayed as like the peak of a sexual experience, but they may not be for all of us. Dr. Lori Mintz has described the orgasm gap, or the distance between men and women's rates of orgasm, and the value of clitoral stimulation in closing that orgasm gap. Now, according to research by Grace Wessel and colleagues, Black men and women have the smallest orgasm gap. Way to come together. Shout out to Emily Nagowski. Now, sexual pleasure tends to be embodied, meaning it's physically pleasurable. But according to new research by Marlene Warner and colleagues, it can also be a state or what you experience in the moment, as well as a trait, your tendency and capacity to experience sex as rewarding. Orgasms are not necessary for sexual pleasure. Sexual satisfaction, on the other hand, can be momentary, but it tends to be your overarching evaluation of the sexual experiences you've had. Now, orgasm and pleasure aren't necessarily useful for sexual satisfaction, but they don't hurt either. According to Dr. Cindy Meston, there are over 200 reasons people have sex. Sometimes people have sex for revenge. Sometimes they have sex for physical closeness to someone. Sometimes they have sex just for the physical release, and sometimes for pleasure. It depends. I surveyed over 1,000 women and their romantic partners who are in long-term relationships in December 2024. 64% of them said they had had an orgasm the last time they had sex. Now, 77% said their sex lives were pleasurable. 70% said they experienced sexual satisfaction. In a nationally representative sample, that's a C at best, y'all. And you're worthy of so much more. Now, if orgasm, pleasure, and satisfaction weren't on their sexual menus, then my deepest desire is that the sex they did have gave them everything they were looking for. But in my research, pleasure and satisfaction were the top 4 and 5 mentioned good sex seasonings. Orgasm wasn't quite there, but it was still in the top 10. So you see, good sex can be so many things. Not just the type of sex that people are most used to, but what you define for yourself. And my goal is that I get as close to 100% of women having the type of sexual experiences that are good to and for them. My goal is that women have access to all the sexual seasonings and that we advocate for that with the same gusto that we typically reserve for everybody else's pleasure and liberation. My goal is sexual liberty and intimate justice for all. Okay. Thank you for letting me get into my sex nerd #hotgirlscience bag for a moment. But now let's get to the sexual menu making strategies. Now, there are so many different recipes that can make a menu. And your menu may change depending on your life stage. However, we're gonna just create one recipe for your menu, and then you can expand this for your sexual liberation. There are 4 steps in sexual menu making. Number 1, describe good sex for yourself. You just did that a little bit earlier. Number 2, determine what you wanna do, your sexual staples. We're gonna do this now. Go ahead and get your trusty notes app out once again. And we're gonna create your yes, no, maybe so list. Now, this is a really popular sex educator activity. Basically, you create 3 lists. In your yes list, you write down all the sexual experiences you really like. They do it for you. They can be things that you've tried and they're tried and true, and they can be things that you've never tried, but you know you want to do it when you get the chance. On your no list, you write down the sexual activities that you despise. They don't do it for you at all. It can be a no because you tried it and it sucked. And it can also be a no because, girl, you don't even got to try it. You just know it's not for you. Now, the maybe so list is more context dependent. It's like, I would do it, but am I in Jamaica? Are my sexual partner and I known to each other, or are we new to each other? You know, it depends. Now, the things that are yeses on your sexual menu, those are your sexual staples. They are what you want to do. The 3 descriptions you provided earlier, those are your sexual seasonings. They're how you want to do it. So you may want oral sex, your staple, but make it sensual, your seasoning. You may want to be fingered, your staple, passionately, your seasoning. Look, y'all are already halfway through making your sexual menus and setting your sexual selves free. Are you ready for the other 2? These are for at home. Number 3, talk about sex, baby. Shout out to Salt and Pepper. Now, I know that sexual communication can feel incredibly vulnerable. Yeah, it can put you at risk for rejection, but it also can open you up for acceptance and empathy in a way that allows you to get as close to what you want as possible. So what I'm inviting you to do is bring yourself to ask for what you want. And this might mean that, you take the chance and talk to your partner about sex. Ask them what's on their sexual menu. Tell them what's on yours. Mix it up a bit. By show of hands, how many people in here were raised to ask for exactly what you want when you want it? You'll notice that most of our hands are not raised. But to the people who are raising your hands, shout out to the people who raised you. Especially if they cultivated that sense of self-advocacy, not from a sense of entitlement, but from that inherent worthiness that I talked about a little bit earlier, as well as the principles of consent, meaning you can take a no well too. Because your partner should be invited on this sexual liberation journey with you. They're a human who can say yes, no, or maybe so, just like you can. So invite them to tell you what's on their menu. You ask them to listen to what's on yours. And then, number 4, prioritize playful practice, not performance. Yes, I want you to have your cake and eat it too. And speaking of eating it, every new skill takes the time to learn it, right? And sex is no different. You are not gonna just listen to this TED Talk and magically release all of those sexual cultural recipes from the 1700s. You will need to practice, and so will your partner. Now, don't let your performance anxiety and perfectionism get in the way. Be awkward, laugh and play through it. Give yourself compassion when that body shaming thought tries to creep in about how your stomach looks after 2 C-sections when you're trying to get undressed in a sexy way. Talking to myself on that one, y'all. But does anybody else feel me? You see, even as a whole sex researcher, psychologist, and author, I'm not the top chef in good sex. I have to practice, fall off, learn new things, conduct research studies on them, practice some more, fall off again, get bored, practice some more, fall off again, just like you will. I'm learning all of these new things and applying them and unlearning everything that you'll have to unlearn, just like you. I want for me what I want for you. Not good sex in the way I define it, but in the way you define it for yourself. Because I believe our sex lives can be a site of liberation, one that is worthy of the same attention that we often give to the intersectional oppression in the outside world. That's what Shatima Threadcraft calls intimate justice. Our sex lives, they're menus that we get to curate for ourselves. One you can share with your partner or enjoy alone. They are our source of immediate power. And are you ready to realize your sexual power? I think you are. So, set your sexual menu. Select your seasonings. Season your staples. Mix it up. And in the words of Tennessee philosopher Glorilla, let her cook.